I'd tear it down in a heartbeat. Wouldn't even think twice. I'd tear it down in a heartbeat. Wouldn't even think twice.
All right, we're on the air.
Okay, welcome to the July 6th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board. Attendance, we're all here. So, sorry guys, the alternates don't get to vote,
We're decorative.
unless somebody wanted to defer. Don't worry about it, I suppose. Okay, anyway, approval of minutes is the first thing. Everybody get them?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second
I asked
that.
her to make an amendment.
Oh, amendment.
And she said yes.
She said she would make an amendment.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll amend my motion to approve the minutes with the amendment.
as amended by Ed.
I'll second that. Okay.
Okay, so
I'm good.
Approve.
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 Okay, so we're all set. So the agenda, the first item is 77 Pier Road and Herman Lucarilli, sorry. So, why don't you just give a brief description for those who
Sure.
might not have
How are you,
heard it.
everyone?
We did get
Good?
Yeah.
two copies of your,
Yeah, we correct the first one to put what it was designated the square in the east part, so we had to resend it. But as we mentioned in the last one, we correct the designated area for what is a K-purpose square and K-purpose east, if you have the site plan.
Yeah.
we mark the cones where it's going to be around the trailer, and the situation about the cars going in and out. So the solution will be to have my employees parking, which they park early in the morning, and they are the last one to leave.
So is it those three,
Yep.
those three positions that are in
So,
diagonally?
yeah, and that way we minimize any type of liability or an accident.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
So,
What about the fact that you're blocking the existing handicap ramp? Are you no longer using that, or what?
Move it.
it's not blocking.
I see a car parked right on
Yeah.
top of the handicap ramp.
The handicap ramp now extend we had to redo the handicap ramp because
Okay.
it was in bad shape, and now extend a little bit outside straight. So it's
So
not
that-
blocked by the
So one of those
cars.
parking spaces doesn't exist then?
All of them, they exist.
The ramp's been moved, I think, is it?
Yeah, it's going straight. Before it used to be an L around the building, and now it's straight from the handicap door at the end of the building in the corner. So the planters, they were there, they were having a little damage in the front of the restaurant. They're being removed, so now the cars, they're like, 40 inches, a little more inside, near to the
So-
building.
At least the drawing I have shows a thing labeled accessibility ramp pointed out underneath a car.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a mistake in the drawing. But the cars now, they park in a 90 degrees angle. So we have the 6 parking spots, and the ramp is free.
Okay, so
From-
those are
from the
those are
access.
now straight ins.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I got it.
That was the old drawing, so we base in the old drawing.
It's right there.
This one here.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah. So now these cars are straight ahead
yep.
And they're employee only.
and employee only, and they don't intercept the ramp.
Got it. I missed the ramp. Thanks.
Okay, fine. Well, that gets rid of
And-
my confusion. So, yeah,
I don't have any questions. This really answers my questions.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
okay,
I thought it was an elegant solution to what we talked about.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Anyone else have questions?
Yes. I know last time we talked about putting a restriction on the operating hours so that it did not operate. We wanted to not get into worrying about how many parking spaces per employee, per seat, what this did to that. We said the way to do that was to make sure that whenever this new addition operated, one or the other restaurant would not operate. I see that in your update, you didn't go for that.
No, so I've been checking since the last meeting, what is the move in person and through the camera, what is the move in the square, in my parking lot, in the front of the restaurant. So basically, the busiest time of the square is between 11 to 4:30-ish, 5, and then when I start to empty all the square, and I still have my parking lot empty, Remember the lunchtime, my restaurant have capacity the 38 seats, 40 seats downstairs.
Yeah,
plus
I don't know
77.
that, but okay.
No,
Yeah,
I'll tell you how many chairs I have.
I wanted to not get into that if we didn't have to, but it's okay
Yeah.
if that's what we want to do. That'd
Yeah,
be all
and
right.
I just, in the lunchtime, I open the parking also for people, even they don't have, lunch time with us, because I have plenty of parking space. So I share with the rest.
Okay. So I think then, if we don't want to put a restriction on not operating concurrently, then we do need to get into how many parking spaces do you have? How many seats
58.
do you have?
58, and I have 130 seats approved. Right now, I'm operating in 110.
I'm sorry, how many spaces? You gotta go more slowly for
I think
me.
I have 58 if I count right.
You have 58
Yeah.
parking spaces.
But
that-
now everything is cleaned up and
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And how many seats
I'm
in
approved for
each of the
100,
restaurant?
38 downstairs
38
and 90 upstairs.
and 90. And how many employees? Right,
Per shift, downstairs we have 3, and upstairs I have 7, 8, 12.
I'm sorry, downstairs is
It's 3 because it's only the service part.
3.
And upstairs, counting the kitchen and the front of the car, are like 12 plus the manager.
12. Did I get that right? There's 38 seats upstairs or downstairs?
Downstairs.
Downstairs, I wrote them backwards. Okay. So, given that, and the requirement is to have one space for every 3 seats, and one space for every 2 employees, I believe? Is that correct? I can.
Remember that. I know there's one per every 3 chairs, yes.
Yeah. This is section 6.9 of the land use ordinance. One space per 3 seats and one space for every 2 employees on the largest shift, in addition to the one space per 3 seats. And then anything that doesn't, have seats, then the planning board gets to determine with you how many additional parking spaces are needed for that. And I think we talked about the fact that we don't think there's going to be a lot of additional parking because of the food truck, but it's not 0 either. So,
Okay.
so if we go through that math, how does that work out with respect to the number that you have and the number that are required? I just thought you'd be short, and therefore we didn't want to get into that, and the way to get around that was to say, oh, you weren't adding anything because it wasn't going to operate.
I got 50. If you divide, it's 128 chairs, right?
Yes.
Divided by 3 is 43.
Okay.
Is 129. And then he's got a total of
15 employees,
That would be 7 or 8 employees.
another 8 chairs.
8, okay.
So that's 50, 51.
Still, he's under the 58 that he's got.
Yeah, and so if you're saying that you've got 58, then you've got 7 that you could say were dedicated to the extra.
Correct.
All right.
Which doesn't have seats.
So it's in good shape.
So I think all we need to do is to show that, make those countable,
Okay.
and we'll be good, and we don't have to levy any conditions. That'll just take care of itself. Am I missing anything? Is that,
That seems right. Yeah,
Sound reasonable?
I was thinking it would be more of an issue too, but it's not.
well, yeah,
didn't
and I
realize.
realized afterwards, I'd sort of jumped to that conclusion, and I didn't, when I got your update, I thought, maybe I missed that.
No. No, I'm saying, I know they have plenty parking space because I'm sharing with my neighbor, so, and it doesn't affect my operation. So
Okay, okay.
I'm happy to keep
good.
doing
And
that
the
as
new-
well.
And sure. Case manager, you can add that to those calculations to your,
I'll add the calculations, but I wanted to be able to see the 58.
yeah, so they're good shape.
I don't see them. I want the drawing marked
Okay.
up to show the 57,
Yeah, because it's all clean up.
So-
Sounds good.
but if you can do that,
Yep.
shortly after this meeting, I can still, we could still evaluate this based on that assumption that you were going to give us that, not wait another
Okay.
2 weeks. I think, yes?
Yeah,
Yep.
You guys correct me if you think I'm overstepping.
I feel good.
I don't understand what the number of parking spaces have to do with the trailer. I thought that the issue with the trailer was that it gets busy at night and people are walking back and forth to the entrance. And that was the concern for the trailer being open at night. It's clearly, you've clearly got enough parking spaces for people. Are we assuming then that people are gonna park and go to the trailer at night? And that's gonna be added to the total? I assumed that this was going to
Yeah.
be something for breakfast and lunch mostly. And that you were gonna stop basically when the restaurant, the main restaurant starts to open. And that was because of the people traffic basically going back and forth.
That is what we said last time, but in his update, he says otherwise.
Well, in his update, he leaves it open.
Yeah.
We can put a condition on that, or.
Well, I don't want to put a condition if we don't have to.
decide.
And I thought the parking was what was driving. It was in my mind, the parking was what was driving that.
It isn't the parking, it's the people traffic.
Yeah, the people, and remember also I have a parking attendant there in the front of the restaurant every
Right.
day.
But your parking attendant is across the street.
Right.
No, his stand
the
is in the
valet.
Oh,
front of
no,
the
your
restaurant.
valet is right there.
Yeah, the valet is
So that
right.
would be easy to keep the
Yeah.
people around the trailer,
That is the idea.
clearly around the trailer, instead of wandering into an area where
Plus
people are
the
gonna pull
cones.
up.
Yeah.
So then there's no problem there.
As long as you have enough parking, and that's what I didn't, and I still don't see, but I believe. I'd just like to make it clear where the 51 spaces are
Okay.
that we're counting on.
Well, I think it's a little, okay, so this is interesting. So, yeah, my recollection was also that you were gonna open from 7 AM to 5 PM because you were gonna close at 5 PM when the main restaurant opens, so that you'd only have 2 restaurants operating at any one time. Then you had a rethink, and now you wanna just have it open all the time.
No, he said he wanted the option. He didn't want to
Wait,
be
the option.
constrained.
Oh,
Yeah, I
see.
wanted the option, and what I was trying to, see, I thought that in the last meeting we say about how the patrons are going to walk to the trailer, how we're going to fix the in and out of the cars near to the building, and what it was Cape Purple Square, Cape Purple East, and having the parking attendant there. I think it resolved the last question in the last meeting.
Okay, so,
And the hours operations, yeah, it can be 7 AM and I say until early evening.
yeah,
Unfortunately, downstairs, Casa 77 dies very quick. 4:35 start to die, and then we have some people hanging there to watch the sunset. It's not busy, It's actually, we close downstairs early, normally. Then what is the hours operation upstairs, which our last reservation is 8:30, so, by 10 o'clock, everyone is out. And the whole pier is empty.
I just thought if he doesn't need that constraint, it'd be difficult for him to police it anyway. It's
Oh, yeah.
just, this would just be so much easier if we're only saying, gosh, he's actually got a surplus of 6 or 7 spaces. Why not keep it out of the noise?
yeah, so that's, so I mean, it's kind of convenient that you have 58 spaces, but you only need 51, right? So
Right.
you have 7 spare, which could be dedicated to the food truck. And it's kind of coincidental, you got 6 right in the front there, right next to the food truck.
That's right.
So, I mean, it seems to work out okay.
Yeah, I don't want to count them, that's all.
Anywhere near 51 parking spaces in his area of parking spaces.
But if you
Well-
count the cars, which I just did,
Yes?
yeah, I got over 50.
Well,
It depending on where you start and stop.
so that's why
He
we,
doesn't own these ones.
Well, whichever ones he's going to count, he's going to number them. So,
right,
so
so-
we'll be fine, given that
yeah.
Yeah, once they
comes
get
back to
numbers.
us.
So once you come back with the,
Yeah, he doesn't own the ones over by the Charter House, he doesn't own the ones by the Overlook. It's only
But maybe they're not all shown.
inside his property.
Yep.
Maybe they're not all shown either. I want an inventory of parking, that's all,
so-
since we're going to
Yeah, I can send
look
that
at
to you.
it. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
would we require an inventory of parking if the trailer doesn't require parking?
No, it
There's
does.
There's
No,
gonna
it doesn't
be
have to-
one employee in it.
Yep.
You already have him approved for the restaurant. for both restaurants for parking. So that's sort of irrelevant. And he said he has a surplus of parking spaces. Why do you need another drawing? Are you gonna start counting the trailer for parking spaces?
Yes.
for-
Absolutely.
Oh, I think so. I think you have to.
Yeah, it's going to generate
Yeah.
more cars are going to come because you've got a third.
The
Board says
possibility
no.
is
The ordinance
somebody-
says seats.
Somebody,
No, the ordinance also,
says seats.
look at L, or I, I'm sorry, for any structure or use not specifically provided for, the planning board shall determine the number of off-street parking spaces required. So, I mean, if you don't sit down, that doesn't mean you don't bring a car.
that's it. Somebody could drive there specifically to go to the food court.
Absolutely.
That's
I
the
would.
issue. Yeah.
How you consider like a quick service, how you do it with the, grab and go stores?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I
You know,
don't think
some
it's a
people
big number. I
park
think
there,
it's one or
15 minutes,
two,
grab something and go.
Oh, yeah.
one or two extra parking spaces. That's all you're talking about. I don't think we're,
You
No.
don't need a bunch.
Larry?
Oh, I agree, yeah.
It's not a big number, but it's not zero.
I agree.
It adds traffic.
And so if the 58 spaces can be identified, I mean, that solves the problem.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
I thought the concern was the movement of people through traffic.
I think there were two concerns.
And that was the one that was, I guess, resonating with me, was the safety one, and I thought the way he coned it off,
I think it's solved.
that was good, and the employee parking, I think it took the safety one.
Yeah.
I think that I feel very comfortable with.
Yeah, I apologize to the rest of the boards if I sort of made short shrift of the parking issue last time. I thought I cut that out of the equation by saying, hey, let's just have an agreement that you're not going to run them all concurrently.
Yeah. no, I
But
agree.
if you're not going to make that constraint,
Then-
and it sort of, I got tipped off that we didn't need to, then I think you just want to go
And make-
confirm that you got a few extra parking spaces to cover the extra traffic.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
fair.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So that'll do it, yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks, and I think the identification of the zones is all good, and
It's clear.
Yeah.
can, Michelle, you help me out? Is the shoreland zone overlay this entirely? Is this all within 250 feet of the shore? or-
Let me put that on the map really quick. Sorry, I have to find the map.
No problem. So what do you grow in the chef's garden?
Well, try to do whatever we use at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Fresh herbs, heirloom tomatoes, and some leaves.
So my raised beds are, anything like lettuce in particular has really struggled with this weather.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying,
I
yeah,
didn't plant anything, yeah, because
Oh,
it's
okay.
been very bad.
yeah, now the temperature's going up.
But that is the idea also for the program that we do with the J1 visas, to teach them a little bit more than just cooking.
Oh, really?
So how they can grow their own stuff and, yeah.
Smart, yeah. How's it look, boss?
Honestly, I think this might be a better question for.
Should be able to share it.
Okay. Sure. This is it?
There it is.
Okay, so that's what you're looking at for the shoreline map.
We need the overlay. So it'll be up near Cape Porpoise Square, right?
Right here. Sorry, Werner, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, the
My
short
question
answer is
was-
yes.
It's
You
all
know,
with,
It's all within,
Okay.
because you get it from both sides. I mean, you might have a little bit of a sliver right dead smack in the middle of the road, that's not.
but for all practical purposes.
For all practical purposes.
This is
you get-
all within the shoreline
That's
zone.
right,
and
yeah, you get 250 from both sides.
Okay.
Of the property.
I'm mentally writing the findings of fact here, so I just wanted to cover that. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. That's all I had. Thank you, Tom.
No?
No.
Okay, so I guess let me open up the public hearing. And since we have a public hearing this evening on this, right? So let me open that up. Is anyone here would like to speak on this? Identify yourself, please.
Yes. My name is Ann Campbell, and our family owns the house at 80 Pier Road since 1935, and we've experienced a multitude of changes. And most recently, we've endured a 3-year tear down and renovation of a home abutting us. And we have these lovely restaurants, which we're excited about, coming and opening. And we're going to face the raising of the causeway and the pier redo.
Yep.
And we're just thinking that we witnessed the parking situation down there, and you can count all the parking spots you want. People are going to park everywhere. And they're parking on the corner of our wall and creating a one-way street in and out of that area,
Yes.
which creates people having to walk and navigate that small area. Either no parking there has to happen, or something has to be done there. And as far as parking for his employees, there is no enforcement of that. And we can't enforce where they park. I've seen parking all along Mr. Perloff's property and up and down the road at all times, and, there's gonna be no enforcement there. I am really concerned about the operating hours. Our family is right there, and we can see right into the parking lot, and we're gonna see everything that goes on. There's all those dumpsters there that have to be emptied constantly right next to this food truck. And the constant services that have to, trucks that have to service these 3 restaurants that are down there is a lot, and it starts very early in the morning. And so we are facing less and less peaceful enjoyment of our property because of all these changes. And so with that being said, we are not for any extra anything that is non-fishery. So that's where I stand.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
You said that there is an enforcement problem?
Yes.
You know this board, doesn't,
Well,
we're
when
not
you
the
go down-
police.
When you go down at night, and he has, the restaurant has been parking their parking lot beautifully. We're very happy with that, with the valet. But there are people parking, and I don't know if they're trying to get to the Daggett's restaurant, or they're just enjoying the view.
Sure.
Walking the pier. There's lots of people that are down there all day.
Yep.
In the morning, and they're gonna have their coffees or whatever, and they're gonna go sit on the monument, they're gonna sit on the pier.
Sure.
There's gonna be more trash. Where are they gonna go to the bathroom? Is your restaurant gonna be open for that? Because people there's lots of foot traffic, so I expect it to be successful. But the 7 o'clock start is very early for us, and we're not for that at all.
You've already, though, got commercial activity started at 7 o'clock,
Yeah,
correct?
We got starting at 4:30 in the morning,
Right,
daylight, or before daylight, which is fine, but it's just, those are the fishermen.
right.
But we're talking, they're gonna have to start the food truck earlier, than 7, and there's gonna be activity over there. So it's,
Let me go back to my clarification question. You said there's an enforcement problem.
yes.
You're saying that people are parking illegally.
I don't know if it's illegally, but they're blocking
Oh.
the road on one side, on
It-
the
Right,
way out, and they park right on that,
right.
where the brush is, and they even park a little bit further if they can. And we've had this continually. When it was Pier 77,
No, I understand.
we haven't had this problem.
So I just want to clarify what this board is doing and can do and can't do. We are looking at this application and make sure that it conforms to the requirements that are in the ordinance and not turn a blind eye to the fact that there's no seats in this new food truck. It is going to generate a small amount of new traffic. I don't think personally that there's going to be a great influx of tourists at 7 a.m. to go get their espresso, but I think people are already going there, will use the food truck at that point in time. But if there's an enforcement problem, or if you think there's a safety problem brought on by parking that may be legal but inappropriate, then I do think that needs to go first to the police and then perhaps to the select board.
Well, we have done that.
Okay,
Nothing's been done.
all right.
And I do think, if a fire truck had to get down there and an ambulance and all that, you are down to one lane. If
Yeah.
a car parks on that corner.
Do
Understood.
you know if there are no parking signs there?
No,
There are no
there's-
parking signs.
there's-
Okay, and this is town property they're parking on, or is it off the road onto private property?
Nope, it's on the road.
It's on the road they're parking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the town just changed Langsford Road to, only parking on one side in response to the residents who said that, with parking on both sides of the road, you couldn't get through. People, two-way traffic couldn't get through and so forth. And I should think that the Board of Selectmen would be responsive to you if there is a blockage there. And have you
Leveraging off of that
gone before
recent
the Board of
activity.
Selectmen and said they are blocking the road,
Recently.
actually?
We've been, not recently, but
That's-
we've gone before in other problems that we've had in the area, and we've talked about that parking.
Well, what I would do, since this board cannot enforce the parking on a town road and so forth, but the Board of Selectmen can address that, is I would take pictures of cars blocking the road and saying emergency vehicles cannot get through. I mean, I just dealt with that with the landscapers who park on Lock Street and block the road. So if Goose Rocks, people at Goose Rocks as well, it's a big problem because the roads are narrow and, trucks come in. And I understand your problem there. Emergency vehicles cannot get through. That's a serious problem, and that's something the Board of Selectmen should address.
But is the future pier project going to affect parking down there?
I believe it isn't going to change the parking, if I remember correctly. It isn't going to change the parking at all.
Oh, but during construction, it might be
Well, during
practical issue.
construction, but that's a temporary
No, I
thing.
understand, but
But something that this board can address is the fact that parking is an issue down there, and if people are blocking right now and so forth, maybe the hours of extended, additional restaurant, which is basically an extension of use, maybe those hours need to be curtailed to a certain point, because if they're getting trucks and construction and so forth, well, trucks anyway, delivery trucks at 7 in the morning, there ought to be a point at which those trucks should stop, and which the food truck should shut down, so that,
So maybe open a little late?
you're opening early in the morning, and you,
No, a little later in the morning, so if it, not 7 a.m. because deliveries and the Losterman, and this was based also to offer an extra service to our Lostermans, but I can open later if that's the issue.
If that
I'll
helps.
be happy to help with that, and same when the construction, the pier happen, if I'm not operating hours and they need to use my parking lot, they're welcome also, so we.
well, I think you might consider sitting down with the neighbors and determining, do the fishermen need something early in the morning, and maybe curtail the hours or at 5 o'clock or something, so that the extra traffic and noise and so forth is not in addition to what's already there, or opening later and, keeping the hours a little later, but you might want to sit down with the neighbors and work that through. As for employees parking where they shouldn't be, that's a problem, because it's all over town. I can tell you, I go in the post office and I see the chefs and everybody from the restaurants are parking there all day, and they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
In post office parking, and that's something that does need to be addressed too.
Yeah.
We
So,
also want to really address those locations you're talking about, because as the pier project happens and more people, especially with the restaurant doing so well, want to come down and sightsee, there's going to be an ample additional, want for parking spaces. You want to make sure they're not going to do those ones you're talking about, so get them designated before the selectmen. And it's an opportune time where Langsford just happened too, so they're aware of.
they're definitely aware of people blocking roads from the issues that have come up recently.
Well, Pier
And-
Road is narrow, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Yes, it is.
landscaping trucks are a problem.
I avoid that place during tourist season because there's no place to park. Easily.
You mentioned expressed concern about additional deliveries in the morning. It's one thing having the food truck open, and I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that, because maybe that's not real, I don't know.
I don't cook.
No,
in
come
the-
up to the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For the record, the trailer is a refreshment trailer.
Yes.
I'm not cooking anything in the trailer.
Yeah.
I'm just serving whatever I bring, from the restaurant. It's already baked, I just brew the coffee, and that's it.
So you don't get deliveries at 5 in the morning to open the food
No,
truck
no,
at 7?
No.
No,
it's
nothing
not
like that,
delivery, no.
okay, so,
It's-
but
You get
you need to be
deliveries at
clear.
7 in the morning for your restaurant though, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they come in 10, 11. No, some of them, but the majority, I would say 7 to 9, they usually the delivery trucks when they can get there, because they know that after they get busy.
Yeah.
So I think between 7
This
to
food truck
9.
isn't going to change that, though, one way or the other.
Not for coffee and croissant and
Right.
the ice cream and stuff. I do it myself, so we have in the restaurant, we bring it to the truck. It's not going to be a special delivery for the food truck.
The sense is you got an owner here that wants to work with the neighbors and jump on it, and a select board that just has, responded to a similar sensitivity in an equally sensitive part of town, under a lot of pressure, traffic pressure and all. So the timing might be right to visit this again. I think it does need to be coupled with the police view to the select board that is this an enforcement problem or not, and give them a chance to weigh in.
It's a great opportunity for, both parties cooperating with each other too, for the selectmen.
Is it gonna be year-round?
No.
Just seasonal?
Seasonal because the winter time, the trailer for the water issue, even they have water heater and heater. So no, it's just for the season.
But your issue is larger than that of his restaurant, basically. Your issue is a parking problem outside of what his restaurant has.
Yes, he's doing
Yeah.
a fantastic job.
Yeah,
with his
so you need to,
Microphone, everybody.
yeah,
Doing a great job with the valet service. We really like the way that's set up.
yeah, that helps.
And,
But you need to put together photos and,
Okay.
and information for the Board of Selectmen and really bring a petition to them.
Okay.
Get on their agenda.
Do you know who the champion was on the select board for the Langsford Road issue?
I don't remember, it was someone from Langsford Road, I remember that.
No, I meant on the board.
Oh, on the board, they were all in favor of it, basically.
Okay.
And changing that around,
I was-
so.
yeah.
Pre-disaster.
Thank you.
Any other
Public. Yeah.
public comments?
Sue Reeves on June has her hand raised.
Okay. Do, recognize that person on Zoom?
Hi, I don't know if you can you, oh, let me put my video on, sorry.
We can't see you, just hear you. Go ahead.
Name again, please.
So I'm Sue Reese, Susan Reese. I live next door to Anne at number 78 Pier Road. And I pretty much echo her sentiments and her concerns. We are very happy with the new restaurant. We're very happy with the way the valet parking is operating. What seems to be a bigger issue for us is the employee parking. And we have had challenges this last weekend where a couple of times one of the employees had parked a vehicle that had on our side of the street, which is the same side as Anne, and the vehicle was overlapping our parking space, which makes it hard for us to get in and out of our parking space. And it's essentially an extension of the area that Anne's talking about, where the road gets very, very narrow.
Right.
And if there's a car parked under our tree in front of our house, but it's further back than the parking sign, then it obstructs our access to our small parking spot. And there's obviously, at this time of year, nowhere else for us to park, so we're a little stymied. But in addition to that, I think what I would like the board to consider is, again, what Anne was talking about, which is particularly if this is to go into the evening time, I think that there is another uptick in traffic around sunset. And I could envision that many tourists, if they find out that there's a food truck that provides decent food, which it's very good food, that it would be very tempting to drive down, find a place to park, whether legal or not, and then go grab yourself something delicious from the food truck and go down and watch the sunset. And so I think the notion that it's a brief stop to pick up your food is not necessarily realistic given the venue. And so I just would like to ask Mr. Lucarelli and the board to consider, first of all, is there a way to alleviate the parking issue, which incidentally also is what creates the hazard for pedestrians, because many pedestrians walk all the way down Pier Road or a long way down Pier Road to get to the pier, particularly in the evenings. And if they're having to navigate through parked cars on both sides of the street and a potentially increased traffic stream, that is a hazard. And I would, in an ideal world, I would like to see a sort of marked off sidewalk on the left-hand side of the street as you're headed out toward the pier, so that there was a sort of designated space for pedestrians, and that would then address the issue of the safe access for emergency vehicles and other vehicles coming and going. So those are my main points, and thank you for hearing me out.
I have a question for both you and for Anne. How frequently are the cars parked there? Is it once a week? Is it nightly during the high season? Parked on that corner blocking the way?
Every day.
every day. And,
Parking is a premium down
no, I
there.
know, and the reason for them parking there is not because it's a closer walk for them. The reason is they can't find a spot somewhere
That's
else.
right. And
Okay.
it's there's a green area there, and they can't open their side passenger door
Yep.
to get out. They'd have to crawl out or
Okay.
let the person out beforehand, because they've got to get over as far as they can.
I understand. I just want to find out how frequent, and the reason is because it's run out of spaces. And it seems to be, now, I haven't been down there in a while, but in the evening, a lot of the spots that fishermen use open up, and people park there as well. Okay, and so that's including that. People can't find a spot, so they end up blocking the road down there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Jump on that same thread. I wanted to ask Ms. Reese, what would happen in your mind if you just described a situation where you come and there's someone you think it might have been an employee who was basically overlapping your spot. You couldn't use your own spot because it was already taken. Why not call the police at that point? There's clearly an infringement. Your spot's being taken illegally. What happens when you call the police? Do they say no?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes?
Okay, so a couple of, I have not tried this year. A couple of years ago, we asked the police and they said, oh, they're just, a little bit over. We don't know where they are. There's not, we could ticket them, but, they're mostly in the space. Mostly in the space is fine, except that it does then block one of our spaces. So, in an ideal world, as I said, I would like that the space that is in front of our house,
Yeah.
from the no parking sign back to the parking area that we have designated as parking is really just it's almost like a compact car length. And so, if you're parking a Suburban there, you don't have a choice. You are going to overlap.
So you basically think that this is a difficult problem for the police because your spot isn't clearly delineated as somewhere where they shouldn't park.
Right, it doesn't have a box around it, you're right.
And, maybe that's part, I don't mean to be second guessing here, but if this is something you do pursue, the thought of a pedestrian way and all of that part of that solution might be to have the parking that isn't available clearly marked off. Again, it's not something we can give you in this board, other than the opportunity to talk about it.
I understand, and I'm
Okay.
grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps you should make sure that your employees are parking in employee parking spaces?
That's right.
Well, and I think it makes
I'm
it really.
going to do my part, and I just over now and the talking. I was checking the live camera so you can see what is 6:45, which is prime time. And if you see the front of the restaurant with the ballet, it's empty. The restaurant is full, and if you see the pier, it's still busy but not full. Correct. This is in the evening. That's what I've been checking for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and the front of the restaurant is still empty.
Yeah, but I think the neighbors that I'm
No,
hearing
no,
are concerned that as you succeed,
about
you're going
like you
to.
say, we have the Chowder House, and I
Yeah.
have the other 2 restaurants.
Yeah.
Where I take ownership of my employees. We talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I will instruct my valet parking. Identifying the plates. If someone is bad parking, just remove it and bring it back to our parking.
Yeah. It's
And not 7 a.m. If I'm okay, we'll discuss with her what will be a good time
Yep.
to don't disturb any of the neighbors.
Very fair.
That would be good, but it sounds like you and Ann could get together with a petition to the Board of Selectmen for the town road and the blocking of the town road and the blocking of, basically, parking spaces into a residence. So,
It's very hard to pull out of our driveway because we have right of way over
Yeah.
town property.
mhm.
And so we have to navigate the parking for Sue Reese there's somebody parked there, plus this person on the corner of the wall. And so it's very hard to get out safely and without being way out. And sometimes it's very narrow. People are parked so close you can barely get out.
Yep.
We've had to call the police.
Yeah.
When the Pier Road project goes forward, right, they're redoing that, there may be the opportunity to clean this up and mark it and everything. So I don't know who's driving that, if that's the selectmen or if it's a town project or.
It's a town project and the selectmen, and I would talk to Lori about it, the town manager.
Yeah, but it may be an opportunity, seeing this is off the applicant's property, and that, if that's all being done, to be able to literally, like you say, put some paint down, mark things off, improve the signage and everything as part of that project going forward, seeing it's gonna be happening sometime soon.
Well, a good start would be the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
But it doesn't hurt to sit down and talk to the town manager, too.
Yeah, good advice.
Okay. Any more questions about this application?
Are there any more public hearing people?
Hmm?
Are there any more public hearing?
Oh, yeah. Any more?
No more hands raised.
No more hands raised, okay. Then I'm going to close the public hearing. and
Tom, do
thank
you
very
you think that we're going to get an update to this with identifying the spots that are under the control of the applicant?
Right.
Do we need to extend the public meeting to allow them to comment on that, or do you think we're okay handling that internally?
Suppose it wouldn't hurt to just continue the public hearing and then do the next time. and-
Yeah, I don't expect it's going to be a problem, but
Right,
I want to see it. and
Let's, let me move that we, instead of closing the public
Just
hearing. we'll-
parking has been raised as an
And
issue
next
from the
time
public,
we'll
so.
We'll have your update of where your parking spaces are precisely. And once we have that, we'll probably have a finding of facts to read and everything.
Given that we approve it, then I think I will have a findings of fact that goes along with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
assumption.
think we'll close it out next meeting, which is 2 weeks hence.
Okay,
And
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
okay, thank you.
Good luck with your venture.
Yeah, I hear great things about your food.
Publish your menu.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're going
Okay.
to get an update, and that brings us to
Okay, good.
finding what I just did, the agenda. Okay, brings us to item 2, item number 230503, 7 Bel Air Ave, Unit 1. And we'll recognize Mr. Graham.
Good evening. My name is David Graham, the agent for Gretchen Palmer, who was kind enough to be able to attend tonight. So just following up, this house is a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. We're proposing to tear it down and rebuild it on its current location with the opportunity to expand using the 30% expansion in the town ordinance. And during the last meeting, I think it was maybe Mike West, someone questioned, thank you, the volume calculation. So I did send out last week, which you should have received, sort of an update, and we added 8.7 cubic feet, I think, to the volume calculation.
Okay, George, do you have any questions, or are you, because you're the case manager?
I do have one question. And it had to do with the main DEP?
Yes,
And you got clarification on that? You
Yes.
changed the plan?
yes.
And then you said the DEP has reviewed and approved the proposed project. Do we get any kind of paperwork on that? Do we get a
Do they-
copy of that?
Do we get I have an email, but do they send out the permit by rule to the town? I asked April last week and she didn't
Okay.
have it. There's usually a delay.
Okay,
So typically with permit by rule, it's, if you don't hear anything from them within 14 days, then it's considered approved.
okay.
Yeah, so it's the no news is good news.
All right, then.
Routine with them.
Oftentimes we'll get, we'll get some form of correspondence, but the actual approval, may be 1 month, 2 months, behind.
Thank you, Renner.
For us to get.
I had the form that you submitted, thank you. I hadn't done one where this was involved, so now I know.
No, I do have an email from Phoebe Scott, who reviewed it at the Maine DEP dated June 12th, and she accepted it, so.
Okay.
But I just don't have the
Well,
signed
they put
form.
constraints on you, so it's not
Yeah.
like you said, oh, there were no constraints, we're all set.
Yep.
And you creatively adapted to that. Other than that, 29 feet and 5 inches,
Yeah, well,
I have great
It's
respect
below-
for your profession that you can estimate that. And I'm sure Vernon will have a tape measure.
we'll have to do a height certification during the
Okay.
process.
All right.
Field verification.
I think it seemed pretty straightforward to me, but others may have questions.
Okay. Anyone else have questions?
No.
So, I think, in that case, I think we're pretty good with this one. If you want to take,
Public hearing.
want to make a motion there?
I'm not a voting member, but you want to,
Oh, you're not?
you want to do the
Right.
public hearing thing?
Oh, yeah, I do want to do a public hearing. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Welcome. It's all right.
I will open the public hearing. If there's anyone who wishes to speak on 7 Bel Air Ave, Unit 1.
I have 2 hands raised in Zoom.
Really? Okay.
Peter Marcus, you can speak when you unmute yourself.
I think I did that.
You did.
You can hear me?
We can.
We have the house that I believe is right behind, this location at, 8 Belvedere Avenue. And I guess my only 2 questions are, number one, I'm reasonably confident that we have a backyard back there, which is not much of a backyard, but that it's relatively close to the property line where the existing condo is, at least where I have always thought the property line was. So I wanted to know exactly what impact this was going to have. And the other thing is how this should be done in terms of construction noise, when would it be done, et cetera. Particularly as it would impact people staying in our house in the high season.
So I'm sorry, which property are you?
We are 8 Belvedere Avenue,
Towards the beach?
which is the property, if you drive along the side of the tides, and then there's that sort of road, and we're the next property up from the tides on the beach. And I believe, from looking at a Google map, that the property at Bel Air is the one that is behind us. So we're on Belvedere and they're on Bel Air, and other than that, we're sort of parallel to each other, if I'm reading the map correctly.
Yeah, I don't think this property, the particular structure that we're going to rebuild is on Bel Air Ave, so it's right on the street. And I don't believe this is anywhere near your property.
Well, according to Google Maps, it abuts.
Because we have Crescent Ave, we're on the corner of Bel Air and Crescent Ave.
Right, and we're on the corner of Crescent and Belvedere.
So across the
So it must be
way here.
So basically, our backyard and the back of the existing structure face each other.
Okay, so the structure that must abut your backyard has already been renovated. That is not the structure we're renovating or tearing down.
Right, it was, for forever and forever, I thought it was a one-person house, and then I noticed at some point that it looked like there was one condo unit being sold out of 2, so I assumed that it had been turned into a 2-condo of property. And if you're saying that what you're doing is in fact not that, but is something sort of in the same place, but not that specific building, then that's less of an issue.
Okay, I have Gretchen Palmer here, and she's indicating that she knows the property you're talking about, but it's not adjacent to this property. It's 9? He said 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Gretchen said it's 9 Bel Air that's adjacent to your property.
Got it. So in other words, one Bel Air presumably is, I don't know if it's either closer to the beach or further from the beach. I don't know how the numbering goes, but it's to one side or the other of where we are.
Yes,
Okay?
Other side of Crescent.
yes,
So in other words, it's basically next to the back end of the Tides parking lot.
Yes.
exactly. Yep.
And that's right. Okay, thank you.
He's done? Is there another hand raised?
Yes, Susan Morton.
Hello?
Yes, hi. My name is Susan Morton and I live at 5 Bel Air, adjacent to 7 Bel Air. And we have some questions regarding the building. One of our questions is how will construction vehicles parking be informed?
Well, the proposed construction timeline is going to be this fall till hopefully next year. But we can certainly, I mean, we don't have a building contractor at this point, so, but we can certainly discuss that with the building contractor when the time comes.
We've had some issues in the past with neighbors who have done construction and ended up with vehicles parked on our property. So we want to make sure that this won't happen.
Sure, I mean, we can have that discussion with we're in discussion with contractors right now, so that's certainly something I can put in my permit documents.
And how would we be involved in that discussion?
I don't know, do you want to just work with them to talk about it, Gretchen? Yeah, we can, Gretchen, we can just work with you to talk about it. Gretchen can work with you and we can discuss it.
Can you just
that would be great. Thank you,
clarify
Gretchen.
the concern? Is the concern that you don't want construction vehicles on your property?
Yeah, which is, I can currently
And if
certainly
that,
understand.
if you abide by that, is there any more to discuss?
No, I mean.
No, and I think that's, a great question because there's very limited parking in
Right.
Gooshawks Beach. And we've seen not only on our property, but other properties where there are dumpsters. We had a dumpster in our driveway for a neighbor's construction. And, we're concerned because of limited parking that might be an issue for us.
Understood.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. You're saying somebody put a dumpster in your driveway without your approval?
Yes.
And you called the police and had it removed, right?
You know what? We hate to call the police and involve them. We confronted the construction company and asked them to remove the dumpster. They did, but they were not very nice about it.
So the temptation's there, and this way you're catching it ahead of the game this time.
Absolutely. I mean, we
Got it.
love our neighbors.
And you want to
we're
keep
looking
that
forward
that
to
way.
see Gretchen
Okay, but
have.
No, I appreciate it. I didn't understand where you were coming from, but I do now, I think. Thank you.
Well, just because of the issues with parking.
No, that's
that
perfectly
sometimes
understandable.
construction company comes in and they're not a community member and they're not understanding how we work as neighbors.
Right, so this way you have the neighbor and the neighbor's agent saying up front, we understand, we're not going to let that happen this time.
Correct.
That sounds great. I have another question. We're looking at what the timeline is for the demolition.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're early days on this whole project, honestly, but my experience in looking at the cottage, I'm guessing it might take a day to tear it down. a half a day.
And what day would that be?
No, don't.
Hey,
I mean,
but-
we're trying
the
to
fall.
understand, because we have renters.
Oh, the project's not.
So we have income producing renters, and will they be part of that? Will we be part of that in the fall? So just looking at a timeline.
I mean, we're hoping to start this fall, but we don't have a contractor and we don't have a schedule yet. But it will be after Labor Day.
When would we know your timeline?
But probably by Labor Day. By Labor Day, we'll have a schedule.
Would you let us know personally?
Yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely.
That would be great, Gretchen. I appreciate that. Thank you. We come up in the fall for our family time. So it's important to us to know what's going on around us.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more, Dave?
Any more people?
No more.
Okay, so now I am going to close the public hearing. And any more comments from the board? No?
None.
Okay, so, somebody want to move approval here?
So I move to approve the application.
I'll second it.
Okay, so, Ed,
Yes.
I approve.
I approve.
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 Okay, so we'll have a finding of facts next time. You guys don't have to be here.
Okay.
You just
We,
have to get with April after
prepared
it's
some.
signed.
Tom, it's already, the final is, April distributed it for reading if we approve this
Oh,
tonight.
yes, we have it.
So we're ready.
You're
so
right.
we can read it at the end of the
We
meeting.
could read at the end of this meeting.
Or we
Oh,
could read
perfect.
it
I can
now.
get it from April.
Well, no, let's read at the end. We have other readings going on, so let's
Okay.
go on with,
I'd like to talk about that. Before we read any findings of fact, I have some issues with the way the findings are being written, and I need to address that.
okay, let's address that at.
First, we have to get through this.
Let's get through items
Thank you.
3 and 4.
Okay,
Okay, item 5 is related to a finding facts, so
that's right.
that's why we're not discussing. Okay. Now, item 3, 230504, 193 Log Cabin Road, Seashore Trolley.
Good evening, everyone. How are we? I'll give you just a brief overview, as I know.
Just introduce yourself for the microphone, please.
Thank you, Tom. My name's Henry Hess. I'm representing the Seashore Trolley Museum this evening. The project is proposing a 2,400 square foot garage on their existing campus. On the map here, you can see the existing campus and exactly where it's proposed. Currently, it's in an area that is kind of housing and laydown area for trolley accessories, trolley track, trolley maintenance. They'd like to use this garage to keep a lot of their maintenance equipment and other items out of the elements throughout the season. Because it does trip over the threshold required to come in for review, that's why we're here for the garage. The only utilities going to this that will be required are the electric utilities as a part of this. It won't be a heated structure. It's really just for equipment keeping it out of the elements. There will not be a bathroom, no water going to it. Trying to remember if we had answered a handful of questions regarding windows last time, and I believe there are going to be some windows on that garage. There was not a request to provide additional information on those elevations or floor plans, but I know they are working through that, and there will be a few windows on that garage. We'll certainly make sure that they are screened.
That was my concern.
So be happy to answer any questions the board may have, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, anything from
I just wanted to mention, I noticed in the minutes that Tricia had indicated that I had indicated to you to plant trees close to the garage, and I don't believe that's what I was implying. Maybe I said it, but in terms of drainage and so forth, what I was suggesting was near the drainage ditch. I don't support planting trees right up against buildings. Roots and things like that could ruin your concrete foundation. Was planting something like willows or trees that sop up water so that you don't have a problem of standing water, like if we get weather like we've gotten recently. Those trees would help to keep water away from your foundation. I noticed you have a stormwater management plan that seems okay. So, those are my only questions.
I could speak briefly a little bit to just some of the plantings there. I know the drainage ditch will be revegetated with a native conservation wildlife mix. It's mostly herbaceous. There is some woody material, so I think it should do a really strong, solid job of protecting the slopes or any drainage through there, especially once it's established. Hopefully
It's just a suggestion, and herbaceous materials are fine, but nothing takes up water like a tree.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you,
It
Nina.
takes up gallons on a sunny day. So.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
No.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing on the Seashore Trolley Museum garage. So, anybody here? Anybody out there?
No hands in Zoom land.
No hands in Zoom land. Well, okay, so I guess I will close the public hearing.
Okay.
No further discussion, be happy to take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
Okay. Ed?
Agree.
Approve.
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 Okay,
And we have a findings of fact in that can be read later.
yeah, so we can also have a finding of facts for this to read later, so. Which you don't have to stick around for, but you're welcome to. We're really good at reading.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Which brings us to a new item, item 230501, 845 Kings Highway. And this is Mr. Peterson.
Kings Highway.
Hi there.
Hello.
Eric Peterson from Peterson Design Group, and we are here tonight initially because we would like to, as part of a larger project, tear down the garage that's on this property. We found that it doesn't have a proper foundation. Oh, that's awesome. So the existing garage, grab the microphone. That's right. Go straight up. So this is the house on the property. The existing garage is where the dotted line is shown on the property. And the neighbor's garage is very close. In fact, the eaves for this garage and the eaves for this garage actually hang over each other, over the setback lines. But that's just the way they were built. In doing some research, we discovered that this garage has no foundation under it. It's just a wooden plank flooring sitting on the sand. So as part of a reconstruction or as part of anything to do with replacing a foundation on a non-conforming building, we're here at the planning board. So we also would like to do a 30% upward expansion. This currently has a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor that I think, Warner, you were out there and checked it out. It's been there a long, long time. So they'd like to preserve that. Right now, it's not kosher by fire code. The stairs from the garage go right from the garage up to this room. So we've rejiggered the plan so that you can enter from outside and we can fire protect the garage and have some living space above it. And at the same time, the most important thing is we'd like to move it 2 feet to the east. It's very, very tight here. This is a really narrow lot. It's only 50 feet wide. We've got a parking space right here on the, if you can see that, there's a town parking space between the neighbor's driveway and the driveway for this house. There's one car of parking alongside the garage now. That's where the folks who use it now park. Because right now they use the garage for storage of kayaks and all that stuff. But we need 2 off-street parking spaces. So one will be in the garage, one will be adjacent to the garage where it is now. But we can move this over 2 feet and still maintain our parking space, and then still maintain the on-street parking space and be able to get in and out. And that will allow us to put a proper slab with a frost wall under that building. I talked with Werner about it, and he recommended moving it over 2 feet so that we do have some breathing room between the buildings, but no further, because he was concerned about fire and safety access to the property. If it were to move over any further, you'd have to go between the 2 garages, which doesn't really make sense. So we are, like I said, basically, these folks want this to look like it looks now. This family, the house has been in their family for a long time. And so our proposal, if you look at it quickly, the new garage almost looks like the old garage. And that's the point, is we want the same roof lines, the same effect, but we're just adding a 30% upward expansion on volume and keeping the same physical footprint, but moving it 2 feet. Does that make sense?
At one point, you said in your application you were moving it south, but you're not. You're moving it east.
East. Did I say south?
Yeah, somewhere in here you said south.
Yeah, we can't move it south.
No, you would get too close to the resource.
DEP won't allow us to move that 1
That's
inch
right.
closer to the resource, although we do have a permit by rule for this already, so.
Here in the tab 1, right up.
Did I say south?
No, it's east there.
Oh,
But your only movement is east.
Well, you said south in one place and east in another. That's what confused me.
I'm not surprised if
I
did that.
assumed it was east.
We're not moving it north or south, only east by 2 feet.
I have one question to begin with, and Werner can address it too. It looks like on the, whichever it is that you find on the Kennebunkport, the
GIS?
GIS, I'm in here. Okay, the sheet that describes the property. It looks like a dormer was added already in 2009.
Correct. So what I did was, when I calculated my as-built volume, I did not include the dormer, because we're putting a dormer back. So rather than include it in I figured it was confusing if I included it in the as-built and then remove it and then add it again. So I just didn't count it in my initial as-built drawings. It's counting toward the 30% that we're asking for. So does that
So
make sense?
it's part of the 30%?
The existing dormer is.
The new dormer is part of the 30% expansion. I did not count it as part of the existing volume. Does that make sense?
So you're increasing by less than
Exactly.
what you said.
It seemed like it was confusing to me to say that we had already taken a dormer, somebody took a dormer back in the 90s, but then I was going to back it out. Kind of like 1086 Kings Highway, we had a bathroom expansion that I had to explain how they added it, and then we had to take it out of the 30% calculations. It's a very small number. It's like 40 cubic feet or something like that.
You went back to the original number.
I went back to the original number and then added the dormer as part of our 30% expansion.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
So that
When
makes sense.
the dormer was permitted in '09, the current LUO was in place, so
Yes.
you've already taken your expansion on this dwelling.
I think we.
Am I correct?
He didn't take the 30%.
He didn't take 30%.
Tiny bit, like 1%.
Okay.
So he's backing that out, essentially.
Right, okay, fine.
Just picture it shaved off, not counted as part of the initial basis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it wasn't, yeah, I got it.
See what I'm saying? It's very convoluted.
It's a double switch.
It seemed easier.
Yeah.
Or it's more sensible.
Oh, yeah.
How high is this garage? Is
Not-
it going to be?
Oh, nowhere near 30 feet.
Okay.
No, nowhere near 30 feet. It's,
It looks like you're adding a bay window or something.
well, there was a bay window on the first floor of the existing, and we're not putting it back, but we're putting a little balcony upstairs that mimics the footprint of the bay window that used to be below it.
Okay.
So, I can measure that, but I'm thinking it's probably, do you want an actual number? I can give you an actual number.
No.
That was a no.
Oh, that was a no? I thought it was a sigh. Okay.
One of the things you probably should have in this application, since it's applicable, is the beach use agreement.
You want to educate me about that?
You want to educate them? No, you don't think so? Okay, because it's mentioned in the deed and everything.
For purposes of this application, I don't think that, the beach
It's
use
relevant.
agreement doesn't have any effect on, on this particular application.
Okay.
I mean, the beach use agreement just, governs, the ability of folks to be able to use that 25-foot reserved area that's, that's on the beach side.
Yep.
And it doesn't have any bearing on this app.
Okay. All right. Is there vegetation that you're removing?
As part of this project, no. There's just, between these two buildings is just
No.
a little bit of weedy stuff.
There's nothing on the east side?
This vegetation has been removed and is being replaced as part of the house project. So if you go there today, there's no vegetation right here.
Okay. All right. The building that you're proposing, to me, doesn't look much like a garage. You're adding a bedroom. Well, you're adding a bed.
There's already a bedroom and a bathroom up there.
Yes, I know, but you're sort of expanding it.
How so?
And if you look at the nice, pretty little pictures and so forth, you have these nice glass doors facing toward the ocean and things like that, and it seems very inappropriate for a garage. This is not going to be rented in any way, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to have a concrete floor in that first floor section.
And it's part of the residence of the family?
Correct. It's owned by 3 sisters.
Okay.
So there's no independent restaurant?
No, the answer is no.
Restaurant would be nice.
Jazz club.
Are you going to get me on parking if I do serve food out of this garage?
No bathroom in this?
There is a bathroom upstairs
There's a
now.
bathroom.
There's no kitchen, is what he's saying.
No kitchen. No, nothing even approximating a kitchen. No bar or anything. No.
So is that garage going to be used as a garage?
Yeah, it needs to be.
So there's
It can
going to be
be.
a car down there, you're not expanding the residence space or anything like that?
No, it's just a
And
garage.
you're not going to try to use it as an accessory apartment because that's not
It's not
allowed
allowed.
in
No.
that area?
Nope,
Okay.
it's strictly that. It's strictly a bedroom and a bathroom, which is what it was. It's a garage and a bedroom and a bathroom, and it's proposed to be a garage and a bedroom and a bathroom.
Okay. That was all I had.
Okay, and the moving it had to do with, and you couldn't put a foundation where it was because of this underground,
It was Warner's.
Yeah, the ordinance requires that if you're putting a new foundation under a non-conforming structure, that they have to come to the board regardless.
yes.
And I think, practically speaking, on a building like this, especially with how close it is, you can't really get a foundation under it unless you're going to tear it down to begin with.
We were afraid of undermining the next door neighbor's
Yep.
foundation of their garage. And actually, the next door neighbor's a client of ours. We did the garage next door a couple of years ago. And he called me and asked me if it was going to be moved. He was concerned about the proximity of the two buildings, whether it could physically be done,
Okay.
to have them so close and replace that foundation. So we're moving it to the greatest extent practicable.
All right, you also mentioned a deep sewer line?
Right, there's a sewer line that goes right under the parking space.
Okay.
This is something that the contractor talked to the sewer department, and the sewer department said that there's a line that's roughly 10 feet deep that's, I've shown as a dotted line. They gave us the dimension of where that was, which is another reason not to pull it any further, because then that whole sewer line needs to be dug up and removed.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of work.
That's the sewer line for the main house.
Well, it services both buildings. But it's, they told, the sewer department said, that's a deep line, don't touch it.
So even though there is not a basement, not a foundation, there is public sewer, and it goes through that wooden flooring down into this
Yep.
10-foot deep
Public sewer and water.
public sewer and water.
That's right.
So this is not seasonal. This is year-round water.
It is year-round water. They don't use the house year-round.
No, but it could be. It's built that way.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the 2 feet doesn't make it any less non-conforming. It's just 2 feet because,
Well, it does actually on the west side. It makes it 2 feet
Does it?
more conforming
To the lot line.
to the
that's
lot
far
line.
enough? Okay,
Because they're,
all right, I'll buy that.
it's kind of like putting a garage through the eye of a needle.
Thank you.
It seems, I mean, you got the sewer line, the parking space,
I
and the
know.
other one, and a foundation. There's not a whole lot of room to wiggle at all.
Well put.
Sounds like a marketing brochure to me. But we,
Yeah, I
we
need to,
put-
I need to write that down. I need to quote it.
I'll
Quotable.
sign it over to you, no worries.
All you need is a restaurant, like I said.
Oh, no, please, God.
2 quotes.
Now, if you thought of moving it over to the other corner, and then you could,
that's
But then
not-
it's on top of the parking space on the street,
well,
and we can't do that.
So how many parking spaces total?
2.
Are you going to have a problem blocking that parking space, or that parking space blocking your parking space when you do that?
It's already there, and the parking space for the house is already here, so it's tight. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when there's a car parked here, and the street is tight here, it's tight.
Yeah, I know where that
Yeah.
area is.
where
But
do
I'm
you park
gonna-
construction vehicles?
That's a problem, that's always a problem.
Down on Bel Air, I think.
Which is why we, largely, we do these projects off-season, so that a lot of times neighbors will say, hey, you can use our driveway, because we're not gonna be here.
Right.
That's usually what happens.
Good.
Can,
Well, so can I just recap? So you have a garage, an existing garage with a bedroom on the second level.
And a
And
bath.
it's on a wood mat foundation. You don't want to keep any part of the existing building. You're going to tear it down.
Yeah,
Then you're going to establish a concrete foundation. Is that going to be a pier type, or is that going to be just slab?
a slab with a frost
Slab?
wall.
Frost wall?
Yeah.
Then you're going to build the garage with a 30% expansion relative to the original construction, forgetting the dormer that was put on some time ago. Then you're going to reconnect existing sewer lines and potable water lines, right, to the existing services, as well as to the electrical, running electrical service.
You said that much more clearly than I did.
Sounds like a finding of fact.
Just wanted to make sure I was on
That's
board.
exactly right, yeah.
Okay, thank
but
you.
but in you describing that, I thought, where does this fall with respect to the maximum flood plain?
It's a garage, so it's not living space, so it doesn't apply.
So it will flood. I mean, you're saying the garage,
It could flood.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
But
have
the bedroom is above that, though,
by a lot.
by a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we have a permit by rule approved for this foundation
Okay.
already, from back in December.
Thank you. Could I move that this is a complete application?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, let's take the vote.
Approve?
Approve.
Approve?
Approve.
Approve.
Okay.
Great,
So
so
we will have a public hearing on this 2 weeks.
2 weeks from now. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, that will be the 19th, I bet.
Yeah,
So,
sounds right. Oh, you want me to do this one?
yeah.
Okay. I can do that, all right.
Sounds like you've got it mostly done.
Okay, so Larry is going to take
Yeah.
this one, which leads us to the general topic of Findings of fact,
Okay.
before we read it, and read and read.
Okay, this is a procedural issue, and Ed and I have been going back on it a little bit, and he feels it should go one way, and I feel it should go the other. And the more I read in the LUO, the more I believe I cannot sign an FOF that lists an agent as the applicant when the agent is not the owner of the property. Okay? So I'll tell you why. Because as planning board members, our jurisdiction comes from the town of Kennebunkport, and the town of Kennebunkport only has jurisdiction over the property of Kennebunkport and the owners of that property. And when you start doing findings of fact, you know, I go back to the procedure and like section 10.8, planning board procedure for site plan review. And if you go there and you look at section F, I guess it is, and it's, you know, there's no definition of applicant in there. That's one of the things you have to read through in several sections to see what they mean by applicant. But it's there. There's an understanding there. The applicant's case should be heard first. If the applicant is not present at the hearing, any person acting as the applicant's representative, that's your agent,
Right, that's it.
must demonstrate that she has written authority to appear on the applicant's behalf, which is why we ask for authority.
Yeah.
And so forth and so on. And then, you know, as you go through and you look at various guidelines and so forth, like suspension and revocation of permits, you know, the applicant or her agent is exceeding the scope of work for which the permit was issued. I look at that and say, how can we have authority over an agent? And the way you get authority over the agent is only if the agent does something on the property. It's not from the application. The application is made on behalf of the owner.
Yes.
It's the owner's application.
Yeah.
And so when you list, and when you see applicant, agent, so forth, and somebody signs it, the agent can sign it. The agent can make the application on behalf of the owner. But basically, our jurisdiction is over the owner. And then if you go to the findings of fact, if you hand me one of those,
Which would you like?
Doesn't matter. Okay. If you hand me one and you go through and you start looking through and you make the agent an applicant, you go back and you look at the conditions of approval. The applicant shall notify the planning board prior to transfer of rights. The applicant must record a copy of this decision. The applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions. We have no authority over the agent to enforce that. We don't. It's the applicant, the owner, that we have authority, basically, to enforce anything against, unless something happens where the agent does something to the property. But the agent isn't always somebody who does something to the property. For example, take Jim Logan. You know, he'll act as, you know, wetlands surveyor and bring an application before us, but he's not the one who's going to do the work, you know? So the jurisdiction isn't there. And one thing that Werner pointed out in an email to me when I was asking him about this is that it's also, if you put the agent as the applicant, it's not clear if something goes to the court. And they need to clarify it. If it goes to the court, you have to have the application with the owners, the applicant has to be the owner. Or Kennebunkport just doesn't have jurisdiction over them.
Nina, have you brought this interpretation, your interpretation to Amy?
No, I have not, and we could do that if you want to. I know that we've been going through, and some people have put down the agent as the applicant, and I've probably been guilty of that when I first started
Kind of
out.
with the form makes it
Yes.
look obvious to
It
you.
makes it looks obvious, but it's not right. it's not legally correct.
So there isn't anybody called applicant, though.
Can I weigh in on this now?
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, so let me start by saying that this is what you get when you put both engineers and lawyers on the same board, okay?
Shouldn't be allowed.
So the problem with engineers is that they take the words very literally. And literally, the application that we approved was submitted by John Eiseidler, R.A., the one I'm doing. It says applicant/authorized agent. It's in his handwriting. He applied, and then, of course, in the findings, you say he did it on behalf of somebody else, and you explain all of that. But literally, he's listed on our form as the applicant. Now, that may be incorrect, and we may want to change that, but that's where we need to start if we're going to make a change, in my opinion. Lawyers, on the other hand, they don't take things literally. They take things in the context of their training and their understanding of the law.
Very, very picky.
May I continue? I don't mean that they're picky. I think I'm equally picky, but I'm being picky because the words say something to me very clearly, and I don't have the legal training to say that this is wrong. Let me say first that this thought that instead of doing what it says on the form, we should always use the owner. We certainly had one, I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks ago, when the people who were doing the application, there was a gentleman here representing Mr. Boley. Now, Boley wasn't the owner. He was being represented by the applicant, by the agent, excuse me. The owner was a third party. So it's not just easy to say, oh, tick the box, it's always the owner. It's not. We need, if we're going to go this way, if this is a concern, we need to update this form to say, who are the players and what are their roles, right? Mr. Einside, okay, he's an agent for this other person who is the applicant, tick the box. Or he is somebody who has an interest and who has the authority from the owner, or tick the box.
And is legally responsible, she maybe be
Not necessarily. As long as they have authorization, they don't have to be legally responsible. Anything we say to them here is supposed to go back to the owner. It's the owner who is legally responsible.
So I haven't understood that yet, so I understand that's your position. I haven't accepted that yet, and I would if we're going to make a change.
Provided a delegation to the agent, that the agent is handling his shed for.
So I wrote a findings, right, for an approved application that we all adjudicated and was written this way, and it says the applicant is John. And now somebody else is going to tell me, well, yeah, but it says that, but it really means something else.
No,
I don't think we,
doesn't
can
say
I finish the thought? Can I finish the thought? The only place the applicant is listed, his name is there. So I wrote a findings that said, this is what we approved. And if we're going to do something different, then by all means, let's decide what we're going to do and make that change, and then we'll go fix all of the things we've signed. I was tickled to see that George wrote one exactly the same way, because I thought I was going to be hanging out there on this. But in the past, we've done this routinely. Now, Nina has realized that she has a concern, and it seems like there's some legitimacy to it, but I don't know what the answer is. I wouldn't know what to write here.
Yeah, because even in the case of the House of Wine.
Yes, I agree.
The wine or Kennebunkport, what was the one where we were moving from a barber to a wine? And they did the application.
Down on Ocean.
But they didn't own it yet. They were waiting.
Exactly
for
right.
people to own it,
The owner
so.
was there.
Yeah, but who's the owner versus the applicant versus, so we, if we're gonna do it, we gotta be very precise.
If we're going to worry about it on the findings, then we need to have decided it in the board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, but let me just point out that doesn't say applicant. It says applicant/agent, so it could be either or. That doesn't mean the application is made if the agent signs it in the name of the agent. The application is made for the owner, and it's the owner we enforce things on. It's the owner we give conditions.
So you understand I disagree with that. The agent does not always represent the owner.
No, what you just said, when we put conditions on there, those apply to the owner, those do
That's
not
right.
apply to
And
the
it
agent.
says.
So that, maybe that needs to be clarified then.
I'm happy to be consistent in any direction I'm given. Here's what happened to me. I'm neither an engineer nor a lawyer, and not especially intelligent or creative. So what I do is I do a cut and paste job from an existing finding a fact, rather than write it all out longhand. So in doing that, I went to the most recent one I had, which was from the esteemed Ed Francis. And I'd noticed that he had put the authorized agent on the top of it, and I thought.
Actually, I put the applicant.
Or the applicant, yes, excuse me, I stand corrected, the applicant, but not necessarily the legal owner, the agent of the owner. And I'd never seen that, I wasn't sure, and I went back and forth on it. So I went to the deed. So I went to the deed in this case, and it was a warranty covenant deed, and it was for consideration paid to Gretchen Palmer and Curtis P. O'Hara. And I got confused because there was no Curtis P. O'Hara anywhere in the picture. And so I wasn't really sure, and so I'm going with the David Graham thing. And that's how I made my really logical choice.
Curtis B. O'Hara should be authorizing the agent as well.
He didn't show up anywhere.
And we have, well, we missed that because we've done that before. We've had a deed where there are two owners, and we have asked both owners to authorize the agent.
Yeah, we wait.
And that's the way it should be, because basically, when we enforce things or we put conditions on, the only person we can basically put those conditions on is the owner of the property.
So in this case, for the finding of fact, which apparently we're not going to read tonight, it says that in the findings of fact that we have an established owner, and I don't know for a fact that, based on this paperwork, that Gretchen Palmer is in fact the owner of that property.
Well, she's the co-owner.
Perhaps.
What's it say on the application that we approved, George? Does it say who the owner of record is?
It says that it's full names, current mailing addresses, owners and properties, a small copy of, no, it doesn't say it on this one, it just says owner of record, Gretchen Palmer.
Well, then there you go. We approved that, didn't we?
We did approve that.
We approved
But that's
it
not,
Then the findings need to reflect what we approved.
the deed lists another person who.
Well, then
may not
maybe
be
we
with us,
shouldn't have
who may
approved
be-
it, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, we approved, what we approved is.
The
what we-
findings need to reflect what we
I knew I was
approved.
gonna get out of my depth pretty quickly. I'm in the deep
I
end.
think you're doing fine.
Okay,
Swimming well.
we have an issue then on his, that the deed and the owner of record are incompatible.
No, I don't think we
Well,
have
we
been
only have-
consistent
we only
in
have one
insisting that both
co-owner.
owners sign things. I think we have in the past allowed one of them to represent the other.
What if Curtis O'Hara is still with us and in sound mind and shows up out of California and says, hey, wait a minute, you can't tear down my building?
Then there's a legal problem. Is
Good
that,
questions.
is that one of our concerns?
I think that question
until
could go
now.
to Amy. Do we need both co-owners? Do we need all of the owners of the property for an application?
I mean, I remember one fairly recently that we had.
Well, but the way I remember this is when the co-owners are husband and wife, we accept the husband's, commitment. But if they're got
That's
two
a
different.
joint tenancy.
Joint tenancy.
I
But in
would suggest not going that deep, into, into that piece of it. I think that, here's the ultimate question. Here's what you're asking. Does a person in front of us, have sufficient right, title, and interest to be able to ask to do what they're doing, right? And so how deep do you dive into that? So it's not up to the board to do, to do deed research, it's not, that's not your all's
We
role.
are provided with a deed,
Correct, so.
and we should have been.
That's right,
and
so
we
you
didn't
operate.
read the deed, apparently.
Just like we do, in the code office, we work with the information that's been provided to us, and unless there's some really compelling fact or reason that says that it's inaccurate, right? And so that's, it's, are they providing sufficient standing to apply for this, so it's not up to us to say, well, I don't know, there's 6 other owners here that we just don't happen to have this information. No, that's not really our role. If somebody misrepresents, okay, if somebody misrepresents that, so, number one, and we find out about that later, then, that becomes a different decision, as to whether or not, all right, does this change, the situation any? I think in a situation, that arguably that really I think becomes a civil matter, between the owners. If there's disagreement on a reno.
Right.
We did have one, in town where there was a family trust, and we had one member that presented us with a set of plans, and then we had another member that presented us with a different set of plans.
Well, like the last one we had is a trust.
Right.
We heard there were 3 sisters. The
Right.
deed is a trust.
Right. So
how do I?
if you're asking,
You don't know who the trustee is on that.
if you're asking
Who's
my
the
opinion,
applicant in that case?
The applicant would be the trustee.
Yeah, but where does our obligation end on chasing down
No.
that they are the trust?
I think your burden of proof is what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Does this person have sufficient right, title, and interest to be able to stand in front of the board and ask for permission to do these things? Right. I think what you have is you have sufficient RTI for that. It's been shown sufficient RTI to ask for permission to do something. You can have a purchase and sales agreement, and that's considered sufficient RTI, to get, permission to do a particular project.
And again, with this in front of us, the case would be one of the 3 sisters didn't want to do it. Their legal action would be against the one that did it. We don't have an obligation
It's got nothing to do with
sort
us.
that out.
We need more than this letter, Larry, in the one we just were presented, which is signed by one of the sisters without reference to the trust that owns the house.
But are they the trustee?
I don't know, it doesn't say so.
If they're, well, we need to find out. If they're actually the trustee, then they can sign for the others,
Right.
if they're actually the
Yeah.
trustee. But,
And again, I wouldn't be getting into the weeds on a deed interpretation or a trust document interpretation in terms of figuring out who,
Yeah, well,
you know.
Holly Joel
This says
Mudd.
Holly Joel Mudd, that
Yeah,
doesn't
but
say
she's,
what she is.
but on the quitclaim deed, she's the trustee.
Right, she's referenced there.
She's referenced
Yep.
on the.
So, yeah,
On the deed.
On the
Okay.
quitclaim.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would tell you, I think that's sufficient.
Yeah,
You know, I think it's sufficient
The more we bore
RTI.
it down, the more liability we actually gain.
Right.
It's a problem.
But as I understand it,
That would be our
Oh, yeah.
interpretation.
It's fine, 'cause she's a trustee.
Nina's issue is that when we write the conditions, instead of saying applicant, we need to say owner.
So.
Is that it?
You're right, so, so RTI is one question.
Yeah.
Right, so you're asking, can this person show up? In this case here, hey, you know what, you got a deed, it's got your name on it, your name is on here. If it's also reflected in the tax card, I think it's sufficient RTI, without trying to delve into, are there 10 or 12 others that are hiding out there that I don't have a document for, or whatever the family dynamics are. That's, I don't think that's our role, to really get into that.
Okay.
Now, the question of, and I think, what do the findings look like, right? And so I agree, with the sense that, the findings, should really address, the property owner. Because what you're going to have is that document, so they're going to take that to the Registry of Deeds. Right, and that Registry of Deeds, they're looking to associate that name. That name needs to get associated. So, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, whenever I'm, looking up, hey, did this set of findings get recorded? And I punch in the property owner's name.
Yeah.
If it's not on there, then how am I going to find it? Having John Einsiedler or Eric Peterson or,
right.
That's. The only documents that I've seen where you have, the preparer of the document, that gets associated with something that's at the registry is whenever you have a licensed surveyor. You have licensed surveyors, I can do a search at the registry deed and I can, you punch in Bill Pierce's name and you will find all the surveys that were recorded at the registry where he was associated with that. That's a much different animal than, somebody who's just the authorized agent
Acting as an
that's
agent.
here in front of the board. 10 years, 2 years, gosh, 6 months from now, I mean, that doesn't matter. But I think, being able to assign,
So can I just ask you the question here? You're kind of sidestepping the question of applicant, and you're getting to the who should be named in the
right,
in the top of the findings document. They're not exactly the same thing. But how do you handle the case where the person who's come to the board, who has the interest, regardless of who speaks for him, isn't the owner, but is the potential owner?
so.
Wholly in the case of the
Purchase
sub.
and sale.
Right, so
yeah.
in terms of like a purchase and sale.
For example,
Yeah, purchase
yeah,
and sale
yeah.
agreement, yep. No, that's a fair point. I mean, arguably, putting it in, so, again, I'll go back to the RTI piece, like, is that,
Yeah,
PNS, does that
Right.
give them sufficient RTI? Arguably, in those cases, the reason why they haven't purchased the property is because they don't want to put the financial outlay out there until they know they've got an approval, right? So arguably what, in the cases that I've seen, that document may or may not, doesn't usually get recorded until that property,
Yeah.
they own that property now.
So there's
and
there's
then-
probably a legal word for it, but it's the
doesn't get
person who has
recorded.
the burden.
It doesn't get recorded, but it's an interest in the
It's
property.
an interest in the property.
Because the PNS is signed by both the owner and the
Correct.
potential purchaser. So you have a right, title, and interest right
That's right.
there, even if they
Yep.
give it up later on a contingency.
And it would be the
So
person.
it doesn't have to be recorded to have that right, title, and interest.
It
That's
would be
right.
the person who would solve the problem that you've pointed out, Nina, that at the back of the findings, we burden with the conditions.
That's right.
So-
That's
so-
the applicant, that's the owner, or
so-
that's the potential owner.
That is the petitioner, to use a word that isn't contentious right now.
No,
It
it's
is.
not the petitioner, because
Yeah.
the petitioner could be the agent. A petitioner can be an
I'm
agent.
looking for a word here that says, that I would like, if this is how we're going to go, I'd like that person to be identified on the application form, and he's not right now.
They are.
I would respectfully disagree. They are not clearly identified.
So-
I'll add on to the
So-
case in point with this 7 Bel Air Avenue. So we've got a deed that goes to Gretchen Palmer and Curtis O'Hara. I've got an owner of Gretchen Palmer and Curtis O'Hara, but on the property card, it says owner Gretchen E. Palmer Irrevocable Trust, co-owner Carl O'Hara.
So who is the applicant, really?
Who's
I mean,
who's the
if we
owner?
wanted to put them at the top and use the practical consideration that Werner's given us, that says,
in that
you'd like it to be
case-
look up by this person. Who's that person?
In
The owner.
that case,
The
you
owner.
go by the deed that they present.
Owner.
Again.
Owner of the property.
That's an issue where if somebody came in, the card doesn't necessarily reflect updating. Takes a while to update a card. But if somebody came in and said they don't really own the property, that's the civil matter,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you've got kind of three distinctions that you're looking at. You have owner, you have applicant, you have agent. Correct. And in
yes.
some cases,
Even if the
owner,
owner
applicant,
might
and
be the
agent are all the
potential,
same.
and the owner might be a potential owner.
Correct.
To have that nuance
That's right.
covered.
Might be one of the
But
same.
we're also, to solve the problems here, we could have a convention that says, at the top of the findings, we're always going to say, this is 21 Norwood Ave, would give the address, and we'd give the owner's name.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
right.
Okay. We have another thing that says, in the body of the findings, we say who the applicant is. Right? Again, I go back to say, our form right now says that the applicant is the agent in this
No, it
particular.
does not. No, it does not. That's where you're confusing everything.
I'm not confused. I'm making an interpretation. Will you allow me to just say it, and I know that you object? I want to be able to say that the applicant was somebody. Are we going to have a convention that says, regardless of what the form says, the applicant is always the owner also? I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, it's a slash between the two in the form, right? It's applicant slash
Authorized agent.
agent, right?
It has nothing to do with owner is on that line.
Yeah.
Owner's in a separate section.
So we could make it simple. We could have a line that says owner, and we can have a line that says agent.
Yeah?
But
Then in conditions, we're supposed to
We-
say
we-
owner.
it-
We're
it
put-
may-
And
putting
which one is the
conditions on
applicant?
it.
As you say,
Applicant,
applicant.
applicant slash owner.
no, it's.
Applicant equals owner, colon
Okay,
owner.
Let me
Well-
talk for a minute, okay? You're confusing applicant slash authorized agent, okay? You're confusing and saying this is all one. It's not. What it is saying is either the applicant or the authorized agent. That's what that slash means.
No,
They are not equal. There's not an equal sign.
I hear you.
Let me finish.
Oh,
You
go
talked,
ahead.
Okay? All right?
I'm
You can-
confusing it. Yes, I
They
got
can
that.
just underline, or you can circle on an application that John Eisinger is the authorized agent.
Then who's the applicant?
The applicant basically is the owner of record.
Then why do you even need the word applicant up there?
Because sometimes the applicant will be the owner of record. And then you would put Mark and Catherine, whatever their name is, and circle applicant.
Yeah, either that or you've just put 3 in there.
Right.
No,
You have
don't put
applicant, owner, authorized
I-
agent. You
Yeah.
just have
I actually,
all
I
three.
think.
Tick one of them.
I think the,
Make it
you know,
simple for us engineers.
Herman was a good example, right? You know, you've got owner, right, which is gonna be, an LLC,
Right, yeah.
but yet he clearly is the applicant, right? He doesn't
Well,
have
I
a
don't know about
separate, and he doesn't
clearly,
have a
but-
separate agent,
Yeah.
but the owner, is really is the LLC.
Right.
Now, he is the LLC, but
Well, legally.
Can't we
he
make
is the
that clear on the
LLC.
application form?
He is the owner, basically.
right,
So you don't have
But
the
we don't get-
problem there where he's an agent,
right.
separate from the owner.
That's right, yeah.
But if you're going to have conditions of approval and say applicant, the applicant is, and if you're going to read the LUO and say the applicant's case should be heard first, that means the owner. If the applicant is not present at the hearing, any person acting as the applicant's representative must demonstrate he/she has written authority to appear on the applicant's behalf. That clearly says you've got to have somebody that you can enforce against. That has to be the owner, because you wouldn't have jurisdiction otherwise in Kennebunkport.
Sure, no, I don't disagree with that. Again, and I just go back to, the owner needs to be on, really should be on the FOF, so that it's searchable at the registry,
Right.
and they're able to associate it with the property.
Well, I think we do that, but I thought this came down to the conditions, see?
No, you don't do it on the FOF if you're putting down the agent.
Well,
If you're listing the agent, you don't do it on the FOF.
the way I normally write these, I say the owner is such and such, applicant is such
They're
and
not
such.
going to read that at the
agent.
recording office. They're going to read the top line.
Yeah,
But the owner tends to be, well, okay, he's not listed, it's the property address that's listed
right.
in the top.
Yeah, the
line.
registry doesn't, they don't know an address from, from anything. Addresses to the registry aren't relevant.
So we need.
And you can fire an agent, but you can't fire the owner. They have to sell it.
So
Or
we
die.
start adding the
right.
owner's name in the title. Is that what this boils down to?
Of the FOF.
Of the FOF.
The front page on the
They are
FOF.
the applicant.
Yep,
I'm okay with
They
that.
All right.
are the
you should have the owner's
Okay,
name.
all right, okay,
Yep,
all right.
This
Yep.
is why I'm saying I can't sign an FOF. The more I read into this, the more I cannot sign an FOF that has an agent as the applicant.
Right.
Because I don't have jurisdiction over that agent.
Okay.
All right.
Could we
For
please?
7 Bel Air, we cross out that name and initial it and put the owner's name tonight.
Well, I don't know. I think you say that who do you say the applicant is on your FOF?
I'm changing it to Gretchen Palmer.
Well, I can offer another solution.
Yes, simple?
Yeah. I think we have a set of findings prepared that have the
Not
owner.
not for that one, that's 21 Norwood.
Oh, 21 Norwood, sorry.
We do have a copy of the 21 Norwood findings of fact that have that revised on it already.
That have what revised on it?
The applicant.
Careful,
I'm like, this
careful,
is a terrifying
careful.
time to weigh in on this, but I believe it would be the applicant.
Right.
Could be, maybe.
Yeah.
So what does it say?
So this is the one you did, Ed. And
Yeah.
then this is the one where we changed what you did.
No, this says the applicant is the agent, right there.
This part.
Top
What-
line.
Read number
I
2.
know, and I
Yeah.
understand that, but.
And I'm happy with this, by the way, but not everyone is going to be.
All right.
And I want to wait till we all sign.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to sign it.
I think if it's in the, if it's in the bold,
Yeah,
up in the beginning,
okay,
For the recording.
That would be
for
excellent.
the recording purposes, I think that works.
okay,
Um,
all right,
But you,
But-
basically,
okay.
if you're gonna read the conditions where the applicant is something, and you say the applicant is so-and-so, who is the
Yeah,
agent, it's not. you
Understood.
don't have
The
to-
question is whether, how deep you go throughout the entire document with it.
Well, I'm telling
Yeah.
you, you have to go deep enough so that the conditions reflect who it is you have jurisdiction over.
Yeah.
And if you say the applicant is the agent, and then you go down to the conditions and say the applicant is responsible for, you have a confusion right there.
Unenforceable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Has this ever occurred?
No.
probably never.
No, we have not saying that it couldn't, right?
I mean, lots of
I mean,
things can
could you
occur.
have a circumstance where, you have an agent in front of you, right? And, I don't know, you come up with some kind of condition on it, and he says, oh, yeah, sure, we'll do that. Meanwhile, the property owner is going, what? Yeah, I didn't agree to that,
Well, then they have to bring it back to the board.
Right, that's right. Procedurally, yes,
Yeah,
we would look at it.
If we wrote it, put it in there,
We-
and then the person says, I can't live with that.
Right.
Then you have to come back to the board
That's
and get
right.
it redone.
We would look at that and see
my
that that's really binding to that decision. It's a condition of approval. I've not had a circumstance where there's been, that degree of,
I have an agent, I delegate some
that-
authority to them, and if they
That's right.
agreed to something that I didn't, that's an issue between me and my agent.
that's right,
And if I don't agree with that, I get a new agent, and I come back to the board.
right.
That gives us more work, and we
Yeah.
just make such a great profit in the work that we're doing.
That's why the owner should be
Yeah.
basically aware of what the agent is doing. That's
one
his
way-
responsibility.
Yeah, that would be
or
good.
her
So
responsibility.
Werner, in your experience, which is vast, do other planning boards get this colorful, or?
You know what, I really try hard not to watch any other planning boards.
You don't go to planning board YouTube?
You've got your own friend.
I have enough, PTSD just from watching Parks and Rec, so.
Good.
But, they're valid questions to ask, I think there's a relatively low risk, in some of the issues, but that's not to say that, if you had a really contentious application, for example, and you had somebody who was really looking to appeal, and you had, warring neighbors and whatever you could think of, come up.
There were a dock involved.
There's stock involved, or something, then I think, you might have an attorney that could really dig into some of the minutia of a set of findings if they were trying to get them declared invalid.
Oh, gee, that's never happened in
That's never happened,
Kennebunkport.
right?
I've been told by MMA we're the top of the list for
But
contentious and going
in that
nowhere.
case, is there any liability for the board?
No.
No,
No, I'm
And
not sworn in.
so
No.
that,
No.
I mean, I think
we can't handle or change behavior of people and what they do. There will always be
right,
a thread that somebody can pull on.
That's right.
That's why lawyers make money.
I mean, you know, in a,
By
your,
finding threads to pull.
right, in your worst case scenario, what would it, would it, and I don't know, I'm gonna guess at this, but, you found some technicality within a set of findings that somebody wanted to contest, and let's say for some, bizarre reason it, it wound its way through the court system, my expectation is that you'd have a judge would look at it, they'd probably roll their eyes, and they'd remand it back to the board and say, clean this up. And then go back through it, I mean, that's what I would.
So you have to revisit another application at the board.
That's right. That's
Outstanding.
what I would
It's another
expect to
And
see.
just to inform you, I've gone back and looked at FOFs from this board from years before, and we write some of the best I've ever seen.
Nope.
So are we gonna read any finding of facts
They're
tonight?
very thorough.
I still,
Could you need us?
I want to come back,
This may because
I want to come back to the form,
have to look at yours.
if I could.
Yeah.
Anything to clean up and make it more tidy is advisable. That's why I wanted Amy.
Well, you can go crazy
See it
over
and say,
them,
I think we're pretty close to that.
Yeah.
May I just, I think there's a nit that this doesn't solve, but what if we were to change this form slightly? And that there's two sections right now. What if instead of applicant/authorized agent, the first section said applicant, owner of record? That was one section. You filled that out. And then down below that, agent, if applicable.
Cool with that.
If it's, I think that would remove the ambiguity that
Applicant,
I'm getting
owner of
confused
record.
about.
Yeah, I mean.
And that clearly says right in the application who the applicant is.
Right.
We
And then
consider the owner to be the
It's
applicant.
PNS, it's the person who's going to become the owner of record.
Yes, yeah. Make it clearer in that regard. And then you don't have the engineer on the board saying, that's not what it says.
There's
And
more
someone
than-
else saying,
there's more than
but you're
one
confused, you're interpreting the words wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
Told you were
Are you an engineer?
I know you did.
You guys ought to get your own train.
I have an engineering degree. We'll stop there.
I work with two engineers, and I know all about I've been working with.
I don't think you do.
Yeah, you have to work out.
Well, they're a very,
Word shall,
they're
and you go on
a breed that's quite different.
So I think we've got a set of findings, right?
So
Yes.
we're gonna change the form to say
It's owner of record.
owner, applicant, owner of record.
No, we're not,
Yes,
Next time.
so, no, if we
for the
ever
next
change
applicant who
But
comes
So,
to,
time
here's the
we're-
thing, all right, I just
Yeah.
want to be
No.
clear with you
No,
all.
no.
Yeah.
So we have copies of applications that are out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
those are fine.
And while we do our best, to get, new and fresh to folks,
Yep.
I just want
There'll
you
be
all
a-
to,
there'll be a
don't
changeover
have this
period.
We're in
expectation
a
that
best effort, that's all.
at the
That's
next
all we're
meeting
looking
that,
Oh, yeah.
I thought we talked about changing this
And
one.
you have Michelle now too, and she has that iron
Make
fist.
sure owner of record is the applicant in.
That's right. All I'm just saying is that give it a couple of months to show
Oh,
up.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Going forward, we will
So at the
eventually
moment-
have a change.
That's
of
right.
form.
So we're still gonna
Yes.
read the findings tonight, right? That,
Only if we have one.
For, if-
line
So,
up there,
you can read the
What happened to that
findings
one that you-
tonight if you just change
Just cross the.
Yeah.
and say the applicant is and put in the owner's name.
Right.
That's all you have to do.
no, it isn't, because then you wouldn't have who the agent was.
well, the agent is
You
still
have to say
there.
that somewhere else.
I'm just cross
Because right now,
You can still
The agent's still there.
you can say anything if we rewrite the findings. I liked what Michelle produced.
So what do we want to do?
I will comment to say that I sent out these findings for all to review.
Yeah.
I got back all in the affirmative, except Nina had this concern. So I thought, even if Nina couldn't bring herself to sign it, there would be enough to get this findings on the books tonight. And we will change over in due course to adopt the new
You can do that
policy.
if you want. I cannot sign it, but you can sign it if you
What
want.
what is the revised?
Okay, so we have two. One's the one that Ed wrote, and then the other one.
Tear that one up.
So you don't want this.
I want the one that you wrote
Yep.
in lieu of the one that I wrote.
Okay, so this is what April had edited. She had changed it to the name of the applicant at the top.
Is that the owner?
The owner.
That is the owner.
The owner is at the top.
All right.
Applicant.
Okay,
In the
It was
body of
also
the
the
text,
owner.
it said the applicant is the agent.
yeah.
Well, just
However,
say-
in the body of the text, I want to make you guys aware that it still says the applicant.
Yeah.
And then it still says John,
So
who's the
just change-
agent. So that hadn't been changed.
Yeah.
So.
I mean,
before-
the reality of it is that you have an application that is separate from your findings,
Yeah.
right? You know, and again, so going
So
back to
just
the,
change applicant to agent.
Whatever you guys want to do, you can do that.
Right.
There you go.
yeah.
Here you go, kid. Have at it.
Mark it up, yeah, I want a photocopy of this.
To mark up George's also.
I want a photocopy because I'm gonna copy this.
There you go.
My next one.
Yeah, when we get this done, we will scan it in and send it around as a final, so we'll know what to do.
Format.
Did you change the one on mine?
No, that's
Okay.
the same.
Okay, so we're gonna cross out David Graham, and we're gonna put in Gretchen Palmer.
Whatever you'd like to do.
I don't care. I'm a neutral servant of the group.
Oh, I'm more neutral than you.
Okay.
Everything else, I think, should be fine. Yep, yep, yep.
So, the major thing is we go forth and sin no more.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right,
Or we just try awful hard.
yeah.
All right, just say
Can't make a blanket statement like that.
And we make initials, appropriate initials,
Right, initials, yes.
but we still have to read them
Yes, we do.
Oh.
Yes,
and
we
eventually
do.
get.
Oh, there's that part
Oh,
there.
this is too much fun.
All right. I'll let Ed see if he can read his first of my chicken tracks here.
May I read this?
Yes.
Tom?
Go, yeah, go for it.
Kennebunkport Planning Board, findings of fact and decision, application of Mark and Catherine Battercher for 21 Norwood Lane, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on 7 June 2023 and 21 June 2023, and a public hearing held on 21 June 2023, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. The owners of record are Mark and Catherine Battercher, with a mailing address of 21 Norwood Lane, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The agent is John Einseidler, R.A., with a mailing address of 148 C Road, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. In an email dated 25 April 2023, the owner of record authorized the applicant to act as their agent in this matter. The property has a street address of 21 Norwood Lane, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 34, block 2, lot 2 on the municipal tax assessor's map. The property is in the Goose Rocks zone. The shoreland protection zone overlays the entire property. On behalf of the owner, the agent demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 14008, pages 252 and 352, and 353 on 15 March 2004. The lot is legally non-conforming. Per information provided by the applicant, the property comprises 6,678 square foot, less than the minimum 40,000 square feet specified by the land use ordinance. In addition, the lot is 60 foot wide, less than the LUO specified 100-foot minimum. The existing structure is legally non-conforming. Lot coverage is currently 39.6, which exceeds the LUO allowed 20% maximum. Per information provided by the applicant, buildings cover 25.8% of the lot, and other impervious materials cover an additional 13.8%. The left side lot setback is not met. The leftmost point of the home is nearly at the lot line versus the 15-foot minimum LUO requirement. The right side fails by approximately 2 feet to meet its 15-foot minimum setback. The front of the home is currently only 40.2 0.4 foot from the Batson River high water mark, which doesn't meet the LUO required minimum 75-foot shoreland zone setback requirement. The rear of the home is only 21 foot from the Batson River marsh high water mark, which does not meet its required minimum 75-foot shoreland zone setback requirements. In an application dated 26 April 2023, applicant proposes to add a new foundation under the existing structure to raise the structure approximately 4 foot to meet FEMA flood requirements. They also propose to move the portion of the structure that is currently closest to the Batson River marsh, the barn/garage, further away from the rear of the lot, improving the rear shoreline zone setback nonconformance from 21 feet to approximately 38 foot. The front shoreline zone nonconformance would increase slightly from 40.4 to about 38 foot. The property line left setback would not change. The proposal would increase right property line setback nonconformity from about 2 foot to about 4 foot. The board was advised that the neighbor on that side is a relative and that they had no problem with that increase. After discussion, the planning board agreed that the net result of all proposed changes would be an improvement to the existing nonconformances. The improvement of approximately 20 foot to the shoreline zone setback significantly outweighed the 2-foot reduction in the side lot setback. The proposal includes expanding the square footage and volume of the living space within the allowed 30% maximum. Per figures provided by the applicant, square footage would increase from 2,108 square feet to 2,509 square feet, 19%. The volume would increase from 17,721 cubic feet to 22,747 cubic foot, 28.4%. The proposed lot coverage would improve very slightly, from 39.6 to 39%. The agent advised that the height of the structure would increase from approximately 23 foot to approximately 27 foot, consistent with the raised foundation and within the 30-foot maximum allowed for the Goose Rocks zone. The applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. And all of the items were found to be in the allowed state. No comments to be added. When a proposed development will be located within the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Land Use Ordinance Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, and the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of the development also requires that the board makes positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions, yes, will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters, finding yes, will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater, yes, will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat, finding yes, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, finding yes, will protect archaeological and historical resources as designated in the comprehensive plan, finding not applicable, will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use, finding yes, is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in Section 5.6, erosion and sedimentation control of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, finding yes. And in a negative finding of the board means the application has been denied, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the Board makes no such findings. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 1011 and 1012E. 1. The applicant pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. That's it.
Okay. I got one for you.
Hang on.
Hush.
Oh, we have to do the thing.
Yeah, we have
right.
to approve that. I
So,
would like to move approval of that FOF.
I'll second it.
Let Nina was about to second.
That's okay. Oh, you want me to second it? I'll second it as seconded.
Okay, anyway, so we'll go around the usual. Ed,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Tom, yes?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so that one is approved and needs to be signed. And now you have a slight, a markup of yours, which,
Will require initials
right, which will require as.
on the front
that one.
page.
Go right ahead.
Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision application of Gretchen E. Palmer for 7 Bel Air Avenue, Unit 1. The following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on the 21st of June, 2023, and on 5 July 2023, and a public hearing held on 5 July 2023. The Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of facts are as follows. 1. The owner of record is Gretchen Palmer with a mailing address of 135 Ellison Park, Waltham, Mass. 02452. The applicant is David Graham Architects with a mailing address of 2 Storer Street, Kennebunk, Maine. 04043. 3. In a letter submitted with a revised application and dated June 23, 2023, the owner of record authorized the applicant to act as their agent in this matter. 4. The property has a street address of 7 Bel Air Avenue, Unit 1, Kennebunkport, Maine. 04046. 5. The property is identified as map 35, block 12, lot 3-A on the municipal tax assessor's maps. 6. The property is in the Goose Rocks zone. 7. On behalf of the owner, the applicant demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 14044, page 86 to 87 on the 15th of February 2001. 8. In a revised application dated 26 June 2023, the applicant proposes to demolish the existing residence and reconstruct on the same footprint. 9. Part of the structure is non-conforming. The existing lot coverage is 31.95% and will not change. The percentage of impervious coverage is 13.78% and will not change. The exterior footprint of the existing structure is 993 square feet and will decrease to 940 square feet. 10. The proposal includes expanding the square footage and volume of the living space within the allowed 30% maximum. Per figures provided by the applicant, square footage would increase from 1,224 square feet to 1,823 square feet, 24.1%. The interior volume will increase from 5,721 cubic feet to 6,927 cubic feet, an increase of 21.07%. 11. The overall height of the new structure will be 29 feet 5 inches from the average grade of 10.94 feet, which is below the maximum Goose Rock's zone height of 30 feet 0 inches. 12. The applicant gained approval from the Maine DEP for a permit by rule and meets the standards for activities in a coastal dune area by not increasing the footprint of the structure. 13. Applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 14. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. A. The proposed use meets the definition or specified requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal law. Finding yes. B, the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on site for emergency vehicles, finding yes. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards for the motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties, finding yes. D, the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development, finding yes. E, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of a budding property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause, finding yes. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety, finding yes. G, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan, finding yes. H, the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements, finding yes. I, adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination, finding yes. J, adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation, finding yes. K, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site, finding yes. L, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use for fire protection purposes, finding yes. M, adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law, finding not applicable. N, the proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan, finding yes. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion, finding yes. P, existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy, finding not applicable. Any findings by the board, any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Articles 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.e. 1. The applicant pursuant to 10.12.e shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2. The applicant must record a copy of the decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may be issued or before any construction activity may commence. 3. The applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances dated 5 July 2023. The undersigned Kennebunkport Planning Board. There you go, Tiger.
All righty.
Ready for number 3? Not quite.
Ready for number 3?
Oh, wait a
Well,
minute. We
there's
have to
another one?
approve
We
that.
have to approve that one.
So I move to approve that finding of facts.
I'll second.
All right, so
Approved?
Approved.
approved.
Approve. And, okay, I have a point, or before we move on, okay. So I'm looking at the one for 21 Norwood. Okay, so we changed on paragraph 2, we now have the agent is John Einsteiner, RA, with the mailing address of such and such. But then on paragraph 3, we say, in an email dated such and such, the owner of record authorized applicant to act as their agent. Don't we just need to say, we need to remove the word applicant because the owner is the applicant, so now we
Right.
need to change that to say, the owner of record authorized
The agent.
agent,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
So I'm gonna delete this on this form, so we can sign that too.
Yeah, just another.
Okay.
Authorize the agent.
All the way over to agent.
Yeah.
Sorry, missed that one.
So, you know, I'm taking a photograph. of
And
this.
I've already got initials there someplace.
I am taking
I'm
a
just
photograph
initialing
of
another
this
one.
because it's gonna
So
affect.
Additional,
it may be there.
So you're gonna fix that one up.
Yeah, well, if it comes back this way.
Here, I fixed it and initialed.
Okay.
So you need initial here.
All right, So
Make
this
a
one
little
is-
tick mark there.
this
think
one
it's
is
an
going that
initial.
way.
This one's going this way.
Yeah.
And,
Just don't lead me astray, George.
raise my right hand.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we also need
So you get, here's your new initial.
yours, which also had an initial in place.
Yes.
To get circulated.
Right, but it hasn't gotten past Larry yet.
You don't wanna know the answer
More
to
than
that.
you get to read one without needing any initials, probably.
Larry may have
Actually, I
comments
did
on this one.
initial something, I took out a sentence,
So,
but it has nothing to do with the applicant.
can I see the other one for number 2?
All right,
Read away.
let me start.
Almost.
Okay.
Just a quick,
I'm just,
I kinda
I'm
like
getting there.
what Ed did, which reminds
He's
me
triple
back
checking.
when,
We used to do that.
we used to
Had to
do
read
that.
something before you
Just
sign.
say that all the
Why?
conditions
All
of
the
10.
conditions.
You always gotta read
A
something
through
before you
H
sign it.
I wonder how we got
all
out
good.
of that.
You know, unless there's
So
something
where's-
that
what is my
requires.
liability? None.
So,
Yeah.
everybody
Okay,
signed this?
I can do that.
Yeah.
Sign this?
Yes,
Yeah.
signed and
So they're
initial.
okay?
Yeah.
I'd like to just point out to Tricia when she does the minutes,
I tell you what,
I'd
it's
like
good
that to be
have the- I'll
captured.
share a cell
That
with you.
Tom says he
Okay.
liked what Ed did.
Yes.
All right, so
So-
that doesn't happen very often.
Share a
I
cell,
liked
do you
it
like
too.
pepperoni?
So
Shit.
that's even more.
Let the lawyer do it.
Well,
It'll be memorialized and secured in the vault.
Okay. All right, here we go. Kennebunkport Planning Board Site Plan Application of Seashore Trolley Museum, 195 Log Cabin Road, Kennebunkport, Maine.
One more. Oh, yeah.
Application of May 30, 2023 for a 2,400 square foot garage storage building at the Seashore Trolley Museum site. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on June 21, 2023, and a public hearing held on July 5th, 2023, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. Findings of fact. 1, the owners of the property and the applicants of the New England Electric Railway Historical Society, AKA the Seashore Trolley Museum, a Maine nonprofit corporation, Charter number 194-10010ND, hereinafter the museum. The property has a street address of 195 Log Cabin Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 3, Block 1, Lot 1, on the municipal assessor's tax maps. 3, the property is a conditional use located in the Farm and Forest Zone and consists of 75.4 acres. It is not in a flood hazard area. 4, applicant has authorized and is represented by Henry Hess, RLA of Sebago Techniques, Inc., with an office at 75 John Roberts Road, Suite 4A, South Portland, Maine, 04106, and has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a deed of sale July 22, 1966, recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 1727, pages 80-81. 5, the applicant proposes to demolish and/or remove the existing storage materials to build a new 2,400 square foot garage storage building. The new one-story building will be approximately 19 to 20 feet high and have several roll-up doors and possibly a few windows with screens. It will have a concrete floor. 6, the percentage of the lot occupied by buildings on the site will increase from 2.8% to 2.9%. The other impervious coverage for access and walkways will increase the impervious coverage on the lot from 12.4% to 12.5%. 7, the new building will not have internal plumbing. Electrical power will be pulled from an existing pole and will be connected by overhead wires. 8, existing stormwater drainage patterns and conditions on the site will be maintained as much as possible. The grade for access way will be revised. Runoff will be directed around the building along the same drainage paths that currently exist. An existing drainage ditch to the east of the proposed building will be reshaped and cleared of debris and overgrowth. 9, the new proposed garage storage building is within setback requirements from the nearest property line and Log Cabin Road. 10, the applicant has requested no submission of performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 11, pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. There has been no negative ruling on any of the guidelines for decision or any of the findings. There is a note, however, on finding N, the proposed use will not have an adverse effect on significant scenic vistas or significant wildlife habitat, nor will have such an impact that could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. The finding is yes, and it's noted that window screens and other design modifications are present to protect against bird collisions with windows. 12, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions, Articles 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 1011 and 1012E. 1, the applicants pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the planning board. 2, applicants must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of copy thereof attested by the Registry of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. Dated July 5th, 2023.
Okay, I move to approve the finding of facts.
I second it.
Okay.
Approved.
Approve.
Approved.
Approved.
Approve.
Okay. So while we're
Sign.
busy signing, I can take one more
I
motion.
didn't approve, I signed.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're off.
I'm gonna have my authorization vote on that.